Hi there and welcome back. In today's video we are going to be discussing writing cozy fantasy as a form of self-care. Hi and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Melanie Steele and I'm the author of 3 non-fiction books all about cozy living, and I'm currently writing my first cozy fantasy novel. In today's world, hustle is everything. Everyone is telling you everything you do should be a hustle. There are people out there telling you, on top of your 9 to 5, if you want to get ahead in life, you need to have a side hustle. These are the people that talk about monetizing anything you do for fun as a means of making more money. So any hobby you might have, for example, maybe you knit or you crochet, you draw digital art. There are so many people out there telling you, you should monetize this, turn it into a side hustle. The problem with that is that it then just becomes another thing on the dreaded to-do list. This is something that also happens with writers. We often start out thinking about this idea we have for a wonderful story, and it fills us with so much joy, and we get into it, and then after a time, we can have this kind of hustle culture, hustle voice going on, and it just starts feeling like another to do, and the joy is just sucked right out of it. This is something I kind of experienced with writing my non-fiction books, even though they are quite short books. I kind of felt this urge to be writing every single day and to be researching, to doing everything every single day to make this the best it could possibly be, even by the standards of a short book. And after a while, I just realized that this having to do things in this very hustle culture type way is not for me. So when it came to writing my cozy fantasy novel, I opted for a different approach entirely. I opted to write this in a very soft way, a very gentle way, in a way that is a form of self-care. I'm going to share with you now all the things that I do to make my writing feel like self-care and not hustle. Before we dive into this video of writing cozy fantasy as self-care, we need to address what actually is self-care. Self-care is one of those terms that gets bandied around on social media. It has its moments where it's really at the kind of forefront of things, then it comes back, and then we're here again, mostly in response to what is going on in the world. When these kind of magazines or other news outlets feel like things are particularly bad, they start churning out the social media content about self-care. Self-care on a very surface level, when we think about it, might be things like having a warm bath, having a nice cup of tea, painting your nails, sitting and talking with a friend. And all of these things absolutely count as self-care, but there's so much more to it than that. Primarily, self-care is taking care of our well-being, both our mental well-being, our physical well-being, keeping our well full so that we can pour out to others. That is, keeping our well full so that we can actually do what we need to do. We can support other people, and we can not only just do what we have to do, but do what we want to do, have joy, have fun, excitement, all of these things which you cannot do if you let your well run dry, i.e. if you feel like you're on the eat, sleep, work, repeat kind of movement, which a lot of people do. This is how you can end up feeling. So self-care is taking the time to refill your own well so that you can actually go through life with some level of joy and excitement. And sure, we don't get to feel like this all the time, but nor should we feel like we're on a hamster wheel either. So in this video, I'm talking about writing as a form of self-care, and particularly writing cozy fantasy as a form of self-care, and I hope that you find it useful. First thing that I addressed in deciding to take a journey of writing cozy fantasy as self-care in a much more soft and gentle way was to remove, in as much as I could, a sense of urgency. If you've been writing for any amount of time, and in particular if you are active on social media, urgency is everywhere, even in the writing community. You cannot scroll Instagram without there being posts about how to write faster, how I wrote 10,000 words in a day, how I published a novel from scratch in 6 months. So much urgency. It can often feel like if you are not putting out a book 2, 3, 4 more times a year, that you aren't doing it right somehow. That if you aren't a pure publishing powerhouse, that you are behind, that you are not doing enough. You're just surrounded by urgency. There are so many author accounts out there that are designed to be more of a coach kind of style account. And not all of them, obviously, not all of them. There are some fantastic accounts out there that can give you kind of free coaching advice. But some of them, again, it reduces your writing to a series of checklists and to-dos. And I don't know about you, that's just not how I ever wanted to write. Don't get me wrong, I love a checklist. It's great for things like keeping my home tidy and organized, but that's not how I want to write my book. So to remove urgency insofar as you can, obviously if you are trad published, this might feel a little different for you because you will have a specific deadline. And even if you're indie published, there might be deadlines that you have set for yourself. But what I chose to do was to have very gentle, very soft deadlines. I needed something to push me to obviously get the job done, but for it not to feel like kind of hustle culture, I set very gentle, flexible type goals. So for example, my aim with this book was to have at least half of each act done each month. Act 1 would have been 1 month. Act 2 was 2 months because it generally is the longest part of the book because it's in the middle. Act 3 was to be another month, and that was based on how many chapters I was aiming to do for each section, and that is how it worked out for me. However, at the time of filming this, I have not finished Act 3 in that timeline, mostly because we went on holiday to Northumberland, which obviously took 10 days out of my schedule. But I wasn't panicked about it, not at all, because it was just a gentle deadline I had set myself. And I just took a deep breath and remembered, it's okay. It is okay. I don't need to fret. I don't need to try and make up for this writing. I don't need to catch up in any way because the deadlines I have set are my own. I don't need to adhere to them 100%. They are just there to give me enough of a gentle nudge to write, but not to keep me up at night thinking I haven't met this particular deadline. So my first step, essentially, in writing this in a way it feels like self-care, is to set very gentle, flexible deadlines with your writing. Nothing hard, nothing solid, nothing that is going to make you feel like any sort of failure for not adhering to it. Just enough of a framework, have you centered on your goal, but not so much that you are tearing your hair out. On the topic of self-care, when was the last time you had some water? Go get some water right now. Now then, not everyone watching this video is writing cozy fantasy, but there are a number of things that you can definitely bring into your writing practice to make it feel much more like a form of self-care. So I think one of the main appeals that we have as people who want to write is a sense of control. Now, as I said at the beginning, the world feels very chaotic right now, very out of control, very stressful. So as writers, we are able to create a world of our own, even if that world is maybe a bit of a higher stakes fantasy or a world where things are kind of perilous. Even in that respect, you're in charge and you are creating it. And that in itself can be a kind of catharsis from the real world. this sense of control over creating the world is definitely a form of self-care, and I feel like in creating these worlds we are able to work through a lot of things in a way that we might not otherwise be able to do. As fiction writers, we are all creating worlds from our imagination. That's the whole point, right? We can dream up anything and make it into a reality on the page. We can dream up magic and wonder and romance, fantastical worlds. That is self-care right there, being able to imagine things as you would want them to be, to create a world where you are both in charge, as we just said, but a world of your own imagination as well. And I feel like in connecting with our imagination, that is really, really important to self-care. Not just writers can benefit from this. I feel anyone doing any profession or not can benefit from connecting to their imagination. Imagination is something we often feel forced to leave behind in childhood. The classic, it's time to grow up, you need to go get a job, you need to go be an adult. We often sacrifice imagination for that because we don't see any place for it in the life that we are living now. Particularly if you're doing a job that is very, I don't know, centered on maybe science or numbers. You think, what on earth would I use imagination for? I deal in statistics, I deal in experiments, it is what it is, it's factual data. And again, we can get further and further away from the kind of power of our imagination. If you're writing as on the side, as many people are, having that break from the real world into the world of your imagination is just so important. It really is a way of kind of filling the well and replenishing and connecting to that kind of childhood part of us that most of us have long since forgotten, and having that time to just imagine and dream and not have anyone kind of slamming down your ideas, and being able to just get them out of here and onto paper, onto the screen, is a really important form of self-care. Writing cozy fantasy for me offered me an important structure to my day. It offered me the chance to kind of reorganize my days, to do my writing when I'm kind of at my best and my brightest, and also to design a ritual to ease myself in to writing in this kind of cozy fantastical world that I'm creating. And having that kind of ritual for me is often things like lighting a candle or setting my wax burner going first. That kind of eases me into that, having that scent. I'm just someone who's very driven by scents, either in a bad way or in a very good way. Kind of having that scent signals to my brain that we are now thinking about writing. And of course, the obligatory hot cozy drink, whether that's tea or coffee, having that in a favorite mug, having that set down on my table, having my story Bible where I have all of my details about my characters and my world, and just flicking through that. All of these things help provide a kind of routine and a gentle structure to my day, rather than a very aggressive, I need to start writing at exactly 9 a.m. I'm going to write for exactly 1 hour, and then I'm going to do this and that. I didn't want my writing to feel like a traditional sort of 9 to 5, even though I do write full time. I write full time at home because I don't want to work a traditional 9 to 5. That is not for me whatsoever. It was important that I created some structure, or else obviously time can just get away from you. But it had to feel soft and it had to feel gentle. It had to be something that when I woke up in the morning, I was excited to do. I was like, yes, I can't wait to kind of get started with my writing. And essentially it had to feel like me. So writing this cozy fantasy has offered me a chance to have this very gentle structure, mainly to my mornings, which is when I write mostly, but also in the afternoon when I get on with things that are less creative and more admin, such as social media, editing videos for YouTube. It all just offers this very gentle rhythm and gentle structure to my day that I might not otherwise have. Looking at all of the particularly romantasy books that are coming out right now, all of these stories feel very loud, very big, very life or death kind of stories. That is not what I wanted to write. And I think sometimes we all forget that stories don't have to be loud to be powerful. Stories can whisper. Stories can wrap around you like a blanket. Cozy fantasy doesn't ignore that bad things happen in life or in the story world, but it doesn't center on it either. It is not centered on the pain that a protagonist might experience. It's not centered on the trials and tribulations. Those happen, but it is much more about the relationships that happen within that story. It is much more about things like found family, for example. So if a protagonist is going through a difficult trial, they have the kind of friends and family to get them through it, and that is much more the focus of this genre. So rather than Hunger Games-esque, where, you know, you're very much alone, you dare make any allies lest they stab you in the back, this is not that. This is writing a story whereby we get to go through trials and tribulations, never alone, always with other people. So if you're feeling burnt out or blocked or just not able to write right now, this is your permission. This is your permission to write gently. This is your permission to write without pressure. This is your permission to write something soft and quiet. You don't need a big plot. You don't need tons of conflict. It doesn't have to be life or death. You don't need to write for anyone but yourself. Read cozy, read slow, read for you. Let the story that you're writing be a soft place for you to spend time and to land. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that it's helped you to see that writing cozy fantasy, or indeed any form of writing, can be a form of self-care. It does not have to be a hustle. It does not have to be urgent. It can be a form of processing anything that you need to process. It can be a way to indulge your imagination, have that kind of escapism that we all need. But most importantly, it's something that you can do for yourself. You don't need to be doing it for anybody else. It can be just for you. If you liked this video, I would love if you could give it a thumbs up down below. And if you'd like to see more content, hit the subscribe button and be sure to turn on all notifications. I would love to know what you think. If you could share your favourite writing a self-care tip down below so that we can all benefit, that would be great. Thanks for watching. Bye.